Chapter 1. You are listening at famvetv.info. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Grade C Cultivation Room, Few. A swift figure moved his fists and feet. The shadows of his fists were overlapped, and it was impossible to see his tracks clearly. There were vague sounds of air blasts in the air. Suddenly, his body changed its movement and his arms and legs seemed to be boneless as they twisted like waves. If someone were here right now, they would definitely be shocked. This person was only a level 0.3 gene warrior, but his bones were like popping beans, emitting a dull thumping sound. He had cultivated basic body to level 3. After a long time, the person stopped his movements. Basic body has already reached the bottleneck of the 3rd level. I just need to cultivate for another 2 months and I should be able to reach the 4th level. Wang Su wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled with satisfaction on his face. Cultivating basic body was extremely difficult. If one wanted to advance further, they would need a massive amount of time and energy. The requirements for one's body were especially harsh, and a great deal of resources were required. For the sake of cultivating this ancient martial art, many people had invested a lot of money and effort, but they were still unable to reach his level. Wang Su did it with his own talent and understanding. He watched a large number of cultivation videos on the internet and finally cultivated basic body to the 3rd level, which would allow him to shine in the academy's matches. Wang Su. Suddenly, a familiar voice came. Li Lian, you should be tutoring at a wealthy family at this time. Why did you come here? Wang Su smiled when he saw Li Lian. Li Lian, like Wang Su, was also a student of the Genetic Academy. The two of them grew up together and had a close relationship. Although they weren't biological brothers, they were even closer than that. Not only that, the two of them had also been neighbors for more than 10 years. They lived in the tenement housing in the civilian district of the 7th Safe Zone. To put it bluntly, the civilian district was a slum. The tenement residences were houses that were 30 square meters large. You've been cultivating so hard that you've lost track of time. Today is the day for us to check the scoreboard. Li Lian patted Wang Su's shoulder and said with a smile, you've become a lot sturdier. You're indeed a gene warrior. Impressive. Oh. Right. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten. Today is the day when the scoreboard updates. I should go and collect my resources. Wang Su suddenly realized every month, the Genetic Academy would announce the points of each gene warrior. These points had to be obtained by hunting insects. The more points accumulated meant the more insects they had hunted, and their strength would also be self-evident. Therefore, the Genetic Academy would offer cultivation resources to the top 10 gene warriors in the scoreboard, giving them more motivation to cultivate. I really envy you. You're always in the top 3, unlike me, who is still at level 1. Advancing is especially difficult. I can only go on the scientific and political path in the future. Li Lian sighed. Ever since the birth of the gene warriors, although everyone had been eligible to receive the gene serum, very few people had the talent to cultivate. Most people couldn't advance any further after reaching level 1. Li Lian was one of them. If they couldn't advance in martial arts, they could only look for a future in science and politics. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Unlike 50 years ago when people could do whatever they wanted with great power, an official was no match for a gene warrior at all, unless the official reached a certain level in science and politics. In this aspect, Wang Su's future was much brighter than Li Lian's. He couldn't help but feel envious. Here we go again. Let's go take a look at the scoreboard. Wang Su smiled as he punched Li Lian. The two of them left the cultivation room and walked towards the Genetics Academy while chatting happily. In front of the huge electronic screen, many men and women wearing the special battle attire of the Genetic Academy surrounded it, making the place so crowded. The packed crowd made the entire space filled with noises. Even the air was boiling. There are so many people today. Wang Su and Li Lian heard a huge commotion before they even walked in. There were more than 1,000 people gathering in front of the electronic screen and they couldn't squeeze in at all. Senior Wang Su. The moment Wang Su walked in, someone saw him immediately. Their eyes brightened and they quickly made way for him. When the others heard this, they also made way with looks of admiration. They looked at Wang Su with fiery eyes. In just a moment, the surging crowd opened up a path for Wang Su. Wang Su smiled and nodded at his juniors. He was already used to such situations. Ever since the Gene Warriors were born, power that exceeded the limits of human beings had emerged. More and more terrifying powerhouses were gradually born. The understanding of the world had slowly been changed. To everyone, strength was everything. First place, Zhang Xinglin, points. 352 points. Second place, Wang Su, points. 326". Third place, Su Yuan, points. 289". Fourth place, read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only. Zhang Xinglin is really impressive. You've only been in first place for a month and he has already surpassed you. This cultivation maniac is too scary. Li Lian exclaimed as he looked at the ranking on the huge electronic screen. Zhang Xinglin was Wang Su's only competitor on the scoreboard. However, he was different from Wang Su. He had a strong background and the Zhang family was one of the top corporations in the entire ordinary district. Even though he had an extraordinary background, what moved people the most was his persistence. Zhang Xinglin didn't touch his family's resources at all, nor did he ever ask his family for them. Even if they offered resources to him, he wouldn't accept them. No one knew the reason behind. Wang Su had heard a little about it. It was because Zhang Xinglin had a bad relationship and insoluble problems with the superiors of the family, which was why he didn't accept the family's help. Listen to the full novel at famvetv.info, direct link in the description.